On August 19, 1666, the physician Johannes Marcus Marci sent a strange manuscript from Prague to the Jesuit scholar Athanasius Kircher in Rome. Kircher had built a reputation as a man who could interpret ancient languages, symbols, and supposedly Egyptian mysteries. Marci believed that if anyone could read this book, Kircher could. The volume was already old. Its pages were crowded with compact lines of unfamiliar writing. Its illustrations showed plants that looked almost recognizable, circular diagrams filled with stars, naked figures standing in green pools, networks of tubes, jars, roots, and a vast foldout of connected medallions. Marci included a report that the Holy Roman Emperor Rudolph II had once paid 600 ducats for it and believed it to be the work of the medieval scholar Roger Bacon. Kircher did not solve it. Neither did the professional cryptanalysts who studied it centuries later. Neither did computer scientists, linguists, historians of medicine, botanists, or the thousands of independent researchers who gained access after Yale placed high-resolution images online. Claimed translations have identified the text as Latin, Hebrew, Nahuatl, Turkish, Pahlavi, a lost Romance language, a private shorthand, an artificial language, and meaningless imitation writing. None has produced a reading that other specialists can reproduce across the manuscript. That is the first contradiction. The book is not an anonymous object with no history, no physical evidence, and no internal order. Its parchment can be dated. Its pigments can be tested. Its ownership can be traced across parts of Europe. Its writing has measurable patterns. Several scribes appear to have worked on it. Different sections use different vocabularies. Yet not one complete sentence is securely understood. So the mystery is no longer simply, what does the Voynich Manuscript say? The deeper question is this: what kind of human activity can produce a book that looks organized at every level, survives for 6 centuries, and still refuses to reveal whether it contains language, cipher, private knowledge, or carefully manufactured illusion? The object before the mystery. Before treating the Voynich Manuscript as a code, it helps to treat it as an object. Yale catalogues it as Voynich Manuscript 408. It consists of 102 surviving parchment leaves, including elaborate foldouts, and measures roughly 22.5 centimeters high by 16 centimeters wide. Several leaves are missing. The present binding is later than the main text, and folio numbers, quire marks, and a small amount of Latin script writing were added by hands different from the scribes who produced the central work. Almost every surviving page combines writing with images. The modern catalog divides the book into 6 broad sections. The largest contains drawings of plants and roots. Another presents zodiac signs, suns, moons, stars, and concentric diagrams. A third shows nude female figures inside pools or vessels connected by pipes. The Great Foldout, commonly called the Rosette's page, contains 9 linked circular structures. A pharmaceutical section pairs small plant parts with colored jars. The final pages contain short paragraphs marked by star-shaped symbols, giving the appearance of recipes or individual entries. These names are descriptions, not translations. Calling one section botanical does not prove that its words describe plants. Calling another pharmaceutical does not prove that it contains medicine. The images guide interpretation, because the text cannot. 1. The physical sequence is not completely secure. The manuscript was rebound, leaves are missing, and some foldouts complicate the original gathering order. Researchers can study quire signatures and matching parchment edges, but they cannot assume that every surviving page now sits exactly where its first compilers intended. This matters Because a damaged page order can hide repetition, separate a diagram from its explanation, or make a coherent compilation appear less organized than it once was. It also prevents an easy assumption that the present 6 sections were planned as a single finished book from the beginning. The manuscript also feels familiar and alien at the same time. Its writing runs from left to right and top to bottom. Lines are generally neat. Paragraphs have recognizable shapes. Certain tall characters appear near line beginnings. Some words repeat. Others occur mainly in one portion of the book. There are corrections, additions, and apparent changes in scribal habit. This is not what random marks usually look like. But appearance can mislead. A skilled creator can imitate the surface of writing without encoding a message. Medieval and early modern Europe also contained shorthand, mnemonic systems, cipher alphabets, medical compilations, private notebooks, and invented scripts that do not fit modern categories cleanly. The Voynich problem begins because the object is genuine while its communicative status remains unknown. The parchment is real. The ink is real. The labor is real. The unresolved issue is whether the written system represents speech, compressed information, mechanical generation, or a combination of methods that modern analysts have not yet reconstructed. The date that closed one door. For much of the 20th century, the manuscript's age was entangled with theories about its author. Wilfrid Voynich believed it might be connected to Roger Bacon, who died in the 13th century. Others placed it in the Renaissance or even suspected a modern fraud made to deceive a wealthy collector. Scientific testing narrowed the field. In 2009, samples from 4 parchment leaves were analyzed by accelerator mass spectrometry at the University of Arizona. The reported calibrated result placed the animal skins between 1404 and 1438 with a probability of about 95%. That range made a 20th century manufacture extraordinarily unlikely and ruled out direct authorship by Roger Bacon. But radiocarbon dating solved less than headlines suggested. It dated the parchment, not the writing. In principle, an old supply of unused animal skin could have been stored before someone wrote on it. That possibility cannot be eliminated completely. In practice, assembling more than 100 leaves of unused, closely dated medieval parchment centuries later would have been difficult and expensive. The most economical explanation is that the manuscript was produced not long after the parchment was prepared. Materials analysis added another layer. Macron Associates examined ink and colored samples in 2009. The report identified iron gall writing ink and pigments such as ground azurite, red ochre, and copper-based green. The materials were consistent with historical manuscript production. The analysis did not reveal a modern synthetic substance that would expose a recent forgery. It also found that the main writing and drawings were probably made with the same ink, while later page numbers, quire marks, and Latin letters used other inks. That matters because it suggests that text and illustration belong to the same production process rather than being unrelated elements assembled centuries apart. Still, the ink itself was not directly radiocarbon dated. Materials that were available in the 15th century could also be used later. Scientific testing therefore gives us a strong production window, not a signed certificate naming a year, a city, or an author. The carbon date closed the door on some popular stories. It did not tell us who stood on the other side. 2. The trail through Prague and Rome. The manuscript's documented trail is incomplete, but it is more substantial than the legend often suggests. A faded ownership inscription, visible through ultraviolet examination, links the book to Jacobus Horsakita Tepanek, a pharmacist and courtier associated with Emperor Rudolph II. By the 1630s, it belonged to George Baresch, an alchemist in Prague who described the volume as a riddle and asked Athanasius Kircher for help. Baresch eventually left it to Marcy, who sent it to Kircher with the 1666 letter that remains attached to the manuscript. The claim that Rudolf II bought the book for 600 ducats comes through that letter. It is historically important. But it is still a reported tradition rather than a surviving receipt. The proposed links to Roger Bacon and the English scholar John D. are weaker. Yale now describes the Bacon attribution as speculation and notes serious doubt surrounding D's supposed ownership. After entering Kircher's circle, the manuscript disappeared from public view for more than 2 centuries. It eventually remained in Jesuit collections and was purchased in 1912 by Wilfrid Voynich, a Polish-born revolutionary turned rare book dealer. Voynich understood immediately that the codex could become both a scholarly sensation and a valuable object. He circulated photographs, promoted the Bacon theory, and recruited experts to decipher it. One of the first famous solutions came from the philosopher William Romain Newbold. He believed that cracks and irregularities in the ink contained microscopic shorthand, and that Bacon had recorded observations requiring advanced scientific instruments. The interpretation collapsed when scholars showed that the supposed microwriting was largely the natural cracking and feathering of dried ink. The episode established a pattern that still repeats. A researcher notices real complexity. A proposed key produces a few exciting readings. Those readings depend on flexible choices that are difficult to falsify. The theory expands faster than independent verification. Then specialists discover that the method can produce almost any desired result. The manuscript does not merely resist solutions. It encourages them. Its illustrations are suggestive enough to reward association, while its unknown script gives the solver freedom to assign sounds, abbreviations, languages, and transformations. If you value historical mysteries examined without forcing certainty, consider subscribing. The most interesting part of the Voynich manuscript is not a dramatic answer, but the evidence that prevents easy ones. The writing that behaves like a system. The strongest argument against meaningless scribbling is that Voynichese behaves as though it has rules. Words have highly uneven frequencies. Some appear repeatedly, while many are rare. Certain characters prefer the beginning or end of a word. Some combinations are common, others are almost absent. Word forms change across lines and paragraphs. Text near one type of illustration differs statistically from text near another. This resembles language. It also resembles a well-designed encoding system. Researchers have compared Voynichese with natural languages, historical documents, substitution ciphers, and artificially generated text. Several studies have found long-range structure, recurring word networks, and page-level topic patterns that are difficult to explain as random symbols. A 2021 topic modeling project found that computational clusters corresponded surprisingly well with illustrated subject matter and scribal attribution. The algorithm was given transcribed words, not pictures, yet pages with related imagery often grouped together through vocabulary. That result does not translate a single word. It suggests that the text changes with context in a consistent way. But another measurement complicates the language hypothesis. Voynichese characters are unusually predictable within words. Some glyphs occur in narrow positions, and many words differ from nearby words by only 1 or 2 characters. Compared with hundreds of modern and historical language samples, the script has exceptionally low 3. Conditional character entropy. Put simply, after seeing part of a word, it is often easier to predict what comes next than it would be in most ordinary writing systems. Why does that matter? A simple substitution cipher usually preserves much of the statistical character of the original language. Voynich does not behave like a straightforward letter-for-letter replacement. It may compress sounds, combine several marks into larger units, omit distinctions, or encode language through a more complicated process. It may also have been generated by modifying recently written words, producing families of near duplicates without normal speech. Underneath, the evidence therefore points in two directions at once. At the page and manuscript level, the text looks organized by topic. At the word level, it looks more constrained than familiar languages. Any successful explanation must account for both. A theory that explains only the repetition but not the topic structure is incomplete. A theory that explains topic clusters but not the character constraints is incomplete. The manuscript survives because almost every proposed key solves one layer while ignoring another. 5 scribes and 2 textual worlds. For decades, many people imagined one solitary author constructing the Voynich Manuscript in secret. Paleography has weakened that image. In 2020, medieval manuscript specialist Lisa Fagan Davis used digital comparison of glyph shapes and identified 5 distinct scribal hands. The conclusion is not that 5 people wrote 5 different languages. It is that recurring variations in how characters were formed are consistent enough to attribute sections to different writers. Multiple scribes change the probability of several theories. A private hoax by one eccentric individual becomes less simple. A collaborative production, workshop, household, medical community, or group copying from shared material becomes more plausible. Multiple scribes also make consistency more impressive. The writers appear to have known the same basic script and conventions. The manuscript has another internal division. In the 1970s, cryptanalyst Prescott Currier identified 2 major statistical varieties now called Currier A and Currier B. Some symbol groups common in one are rare in the other. The differences could represent dialects, separate languages, distinct encryption settings, changing subject matter, different scribes, or stages in production. Modern analysis shows that hands, illustrated sections, and Currier varieties overlap without aligning perfectly. Botanical pages occur in both A and B. The bathing and star-marked sections are mostly associated with B. Some scribes strongly favor one variety. Others complicate the pattern. This is exactly the kind of structure expected from a real manuscript tradition, but it is not proof of readable prose. A group could follow a generative method. Scribes could copy or transform model words. Separate sections could use different tables, templates, or abbreviation rules. Still, collaboration raises a practical question for the pure gibberish theory. Why would several trained writers fill expensive parchment with hundreds of pages of controlled pseudotext, maintain section-specific vocabularies, coordinate drawings, produce complex foldouts, and preserve enough consistency for modern statistical tools to detect internal organization? There are possible answers. The book might have been made to sell as secret knowledge. Its unreadability could have been the product. A patron attracted to alchemy, medicine, or universal language might pay for mystery itself. The labor may have been worthwhile if the object was presented as valuable wisdom. 4. But that is an explanatory possibility, not evidence that such a sale occurred. The multiple scribe finding makes the manuscript more historical and less mythical. It places the mystery inside a community of production, even if that community's purpose remains unknown. The case for a real message. The most persuasive meaningful text theory does not begin by naming a language. It begins with organization. The illustrations divide the codex into recognizable domains. The vocabulary changes with those domains. Particular words cluster on botanical pages, while others are associated with astronomical, bathing, or recipe-like sections. Paragraph structures vary in repeatable ways. Labels next to stars, plants, and figures often have different forms from running text. A meaningful system could explain this naturally. Plant pages might describe ingredients or properties. Circular diagrams might organize calendar, astrological, or medical information. The bathing figures could represent therapeutic procedures, bodily processes, or symbolic cosmology. The final starred paragraphs might summarize preparations or instructions. This interpretation fits the intellectual environment of late medieval Central Europe. Medical and natural. Philosophical manuscripts combined astrology, herbal knowledge, bathing, fertility, diet, and pharmacy. Writers used abbreviations extensively. Practitioners protected recipes, professional knowledge, and politically sensitive material through shorthand or cipher. Invented alphabets and attempts at universal writing systems also existed. The drawings, however, do not provide a secure bilingual key. Many plants appear composite or stylized. Zodiac imagery is recognizable, but the labels around it remain unread. The human figures and tube networks are too ambiguous to identify a single tradition. Similarity is not identity. A cipher could be especially difficult if it does not encode ordinary spelling. It might represent syllables, whole words, abbreviations, or several possible values for one sign. It might remove vowels, rearrange units, or use a nomenclature in which common names are replaced by arbitrary symbols. If the underlying text is itself abbreviated, technical, or written in a regional dialect, modern language detection systems would struggle. Meaningful text also explains why several scribes could participate. They may have copied from exemplars, compiled older material, or used a script understood within a small community. Yet the theory has a major weakness. 6 centuries of effort have not produced one secure anchor, no proper name. Plant label, month, zodiac sign, or repeated phrase that can be translated consistently and then used to predict. Unknown text. A real message is compatible with the evidence. It has not been demonstrated. The difference between those statements is the line that responsible analysis must protect. The case for a constructed illusion. The alternative is not that someone scribbled randomly. The stronger hoax theory proposes structured nonsense. In the early 2000s, researcher Gordon Rugg showed how a table of syllable-like fragments combined with a movable grill could generate long strings resembling Voynich words using tools available in the early modern period. Other researchers proposed copying and modifying nearby words, write one token, change a glyph, add a prefix, repeat the new form, and gradually build text that contains local similarities, frequency patterns, and visual fluency without semantic content. More recent cipher simulations have strengthened one limited point. It is possible to design a manual process that produces text with several Voynich-like statistical properties. This undermines the claim that language-like frequency alone proves meaning. But demonstrating possibility is not identifying the actual method. 5. A proposed generator must reproduce the manuscript's full behavior, character positions, word families, line effects, paragraph structure, courier A and B, scribal differences, and vocabulary aligned with illustrated sections. Many simple mechanisms reproduce one or two properties but fail when tested against the entire evidence stack. The economic motive is also uncertain. Parchment was expensive, but it was not beyond the reach of courts. monasteries, wealthy patrons, medical practitioners, or professional book producers. Rudolf II's Prague later became famous for alchemy, collecting, astrology, and unusual knowledge, making a mysterious book commercially attractive. Yet the manuscript appears to predate Rudolf's reign by more than a century. A hoax aimed specifically at him would require old parchment or a much earlier production than the supposed sale. Perhaps the codex was created as an unreadable authority object, a book designed to look ancient, medical, or magical. Perhaps it was a memory system whose marks prompted information known orally. Perhaps it was an artistic or spiritual project where the visual act of writing mattered more than lexical meaning. These possibilities explain why no translation exists. They struggle to explain why the pseudo-text is divided so consistently by section and scribal practice. The hoax theory is therefore not the skeptical default. It is a positive hypothesis that needs its own evidence, a reproducible generation method, historical context, and reason why this particular artifact was made. Until then, structured illusion and encoded meaning remain competitors, not winner and loser. Why every decipherment collapses. A claimed solution to the Voynich manuscript usually begins with a few persuasive identifications. A plant resembles a known species. A circular label resembles a month. A glyph is assigned a sound. A short sequence can be rearranged into a familiar word. Once those first readings are accepted, the researcher builds rules to explain the rest. The problem is flexibility. If a symbol can represent several sounds, if words can be reversed, if vowels can be inserted freely, if spelling can change whenever necessary, and if drawings are allowed to identify any convenient term, almost any passage can be made to say almost anything. A method becomes unfalsifiable. Newbold's microscopic shorthand failed because the supposed hidden strokes were artifacts of ink. A 2017 theory describing abbreviated Latin medical recipes was rejected because its abbreviation system did not match medieval practice and did not generate a continuous translation. A 2019 proposal for a proto-Romance language attracted publicity but faced intense criticism over invented forms, uncontrolled interpretation, and the absence of a reproducible grammar. Computer-assisted proposals have suggested Hebrew or other candidate languages, but statistical similarity is not translation. Artificial intelligence does not remove this problem. A model can rank languages, find clusters, or generate plausible looking output. It cannot verify a translation without constraints. When no bilingual inscription, known key, or agreed proper name exists, an algorithm may optimize toward patterns placed into it by the researcher. There is also a basic statistical trap. A manuscript this long contains thousands of repeated fragments. When many languages, spellings, abbreviations, and anagram rules are tested, some apparent matches will occur by chance. The solver then remembers the successes and quietly discards the failures. A credible method must state its rules before the passage is read and report how often those rules fail, not only the words they seem to recover. A valid decipherment must do more than produce readable sentences. It must explain the script consistently across sections. It must account for spelling and grammar. It must predict the meaning of passages not used to develop the key. Independent researchers must be able to apply the same rules and obtain the same results. The translation should also fit the illustrations and 15th century historical context without requiring every ambiguous image to be interpreted in its favor. 6. Most claimed solutions fail before reaching this standard. They decode selected labels, not the book. They explain one section, not the manuscript. They rely on transformations chosen after the desired answer is known. This is why the Voynich Manuscript remains unread despite constant announcements that it has been solved. The obstacle is not a lack of imaginative keys. It is an excess of keys and a shortage of tests capable of eliminating the wrong ones. What a real solution would have to prove. What is strongly established? The Voynich Manuscript is a genuine historical artifact written on parchment produced in the early 15th century. Its inks and pigments are compatible with historical materials. Its main text and illustrations were probably created as part of the same project. The book passed through learned circles in Prague and Rome before Wilfrid Voynich acquired it in 1912. The writing contains repeated patterns, section-specific vocabulary, at least 2 major statistical varieties, and evidence of approximately 5 scribal hands. What remains uncertain? The place of production. The identity of the writers. The underlying language, if there is one. The relationship between script and speech. The meaning of the illustrations. Whether the text is encrypted, abbreviated, generated, mnemonic, invented, or constructed through more than one process. What is unsupported? No accepted evidence identifies Roger Bacon, John Dee, aliens, a lost civilization, or a modern secret society as the author. No published decipherment has translated the manuscript reproducibly. No AI system has produced an independently verified reading. No isolated resemblance between a drawing and a plant, island, constellation, or organ can establish the language of the text. A real solution would need to unite material history, paleography, linguistics, cryptanalysis, and illustration. It would have to read not only the easiest labels but ordinary paragraphs. It would need to explain courier A and B, the scribal hands, unusual character entropy, word position rules, and vocabulary changes by section. Most importantly, it would need to predict. Until that happens, the most careful conclusion is neither that the manuscript contains profound lost knowledge nor that it is empty nonsense. It is a deliberately produced information object whose operating system has been lost. That may be why the Voynich Manuscript remains so powerful. It confronts modern readers with a rare limit. We can photograph every fiber, measure every pigment, count every symbol, and model every pattern. More data has made the object clearer while leaving its message closed. If a future researcher proves that the text was designed to generate the appearance of meaning without carrying a readable message, would that solve the Voynich Manuscript, or reveal an even more difficult mystery about why 5 medieval scribes created it?